First things first, let me clear the air before you get the wrong idea. This isn't me saying that power is worthless. This is a video about how power herself considers herself to be worthless, trivial and unimportant in the grand scheme of things. This isn't a video attacking her character but rather exploring a chunk of it which I believe has tragically gone ignored by a vast number of people, as they instead focus on her more upbeat, quirky personality rather than the tragic state of her mind, and trust me, her mind is certainly more tragic than just what I'm going to be talking about in this video. But how exactly am I going to try and convince you that power deems herself as worthless? I mean, she spends so much of her on-screen time hyping herself up, of trying to convince everyone around her that she is important, more important than she arguably is within the grand scheme of things, for the most part. Going so far as to claim the work of others, deciding that she is inherently more worthy of attention and rewards than people who are arguably trying much harder than she herself is a lot of the time. And if you're watching this after reading the entire manga, you're probably thinking about the scene near the end where Power herself comes out and calls herself trivial, along with everyone else, and you wouldn't be wrong. That was certainly an impetus for this video but not the entire thing. There are other things which happen throughout the course of the series which point me to this belief, even before we get that reveal, which are far more obvious on a reread, and I'm going to explain them to you. But before I get into the video, I'd like to remind you that if you want weekly injections of Chainsaw Man content, character analysis, plot breakdowns or anything else, then don't forget to subscribe to this channel. But with that said, let's get into this. The first thing anyone who knows anything about Power should know is that she is always out to gain some kind of accolade, be it the one who killed one of the assassin brothers, completely by accident, even after she stole Kobani's car and attempted to use her as a scapegoat before realizing who it was she killed. Before the realization of Denji's importance to her, she momentarily considered handing him over to Makimu in order to spare herself and to gain the honor of more importantly being the one who caught Chainsaw Man. Constantly leaping from one achievement to the next with endless amounts of determination and willingness to betray anyone to reach her goals. This is the first clue to the fact that Power is completely worthless in her own mind, that she herself consider herself and by extension everyone else as pointless little things with no meaning. She is in a never-ending search for something to give meaning to her otherwise meaningless life. That's why she is so quick to take up one position of authority or recognition and is just as quick to toss it aside, even when she didn't deserve it or without even trying to become worthy of such a thing, is because in her own head she has come to the conclusion that it's already worthless, because nothing in her mind will give her life meaning. The fact that even when Power achieves something by her own merits, she is quick to leap from that to instead cling on to the next best thing that comes to mind, truly a tragic lack of self-worth, or perhaps more accurate to call it a lack of worth in living, a self-destructive lack of intrinsic attachment to the world and the pleasures it can bring. Now some of people might already be bringing up the fact that Power is afraid of dying, of being killed or harmed, or at the very least of having to face off against the Darkness Devil, which point to her valuing her own life at least to some degree. But I'd say that there is a difference between someone not wanting to die, and saying that their life is trivial, because even now we wish to protect things which can be considered trivial or unimportant. Power's desire to live isn't born from her self-worth but rather from a clear-cut knowledge that death is the end, and that it's painful to disappear into the void, only for someone else to take up your entire being without actually being you. From this, you can clearly see that Power isn't someone who puts a lot of importance on titles and achievements, that she doesn't consider lives to have any inherent worth, giving us a character who is constantly seeking to achieve something, to gain something which will give her worth, rather than internalizing her own worth. Rather than seeking worth from within, she is seeking it from without, and yet is left disappointed at every turn. But is that all there is to it? Is this the extent of how Power's lack of worth in her own eyes was shown? Well, provided I finish this script, you can tell by the length of the video that it's not. The second fact I'd like to bring to the table is just how Power treats those around her, specifically how she treats those weaker and those who are stronger than her, as they also play into this idea that she doesn't consider her own life to have worth. Starting off with those who are weaker than her, individuals like Kobani, who is more often than not, one of those people who power picks on the most, a weak little human who is surprisingly capable of handling herself when push comes to shove. The way in which power puts the blame on her, puts her down or otherwise bullies her, is as much of a trope as it is a sign that she herself isn't happy with her own being, that she needs to put other down in order to elevate herself, or perhaps in power's case, in order to help show everyone else just how worthless they are together. Power, in a sense, by constantly picking on Kobani and doing her best to bring the girl down, is desperately trying to claw for anything that could give herself some worth, because power doesn't have anything like that, and has the misguided idea that she could take it from someone else, which of course we can't do, at least not when it comes to anything that would give someone like power a sense of self-worth. So, power continues to bully Kobani, putting her down so that she can try and claw her way up, using her as a stepping stone. But what about when it comes to people stronger than her? Something that we see with power, whenever she is faced with someone that is significantly more powerful than her, is that she starts groveling or whimpering, or is otherwise willing to bow her head in their presence. We see this time and again, be it when she is faced with Quan Shi, pretends to be dead on the floor to avoid her gaze, she doesn't even attempt to strike at her, and we see the same again with the Darkness Devil and with Makima once she has been shown to be significantly inferior. At first glance that might seem like power values her life over trying to take on these impossible challenges, but more than that, I think power herself not putting any stock in her own abilities, in her own worth as a person, that she will bend the knee to whomever puts out enough force, because she has no pride, no sense of her life having meaning. So what difference does it make if her life is used by someone else? What does it matter if she has to act like a coward or a fool in order to survive? It's all meaningless anyway, right? But that's all just been my option on the matter. I'd love to hear about your own thoughts on power and her interest and deeply twisted mind. I have been the Anonymous Weeb, and I wish you a good day or night wherever you may be.